Ladies and gentlemen. We're really pleased that you're here. I guess we're going to kick off in a couple of minutes, right, Denise? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good.
Yeah, we have 2 minutes.
Yeah, 2 minutes, yes. So, but so in the 2 minutes, I just wanted to extend my warm welcome to all of you, old friends and new friends. Hi, Arnold. Nice to see you. And then Professor Yayci and Professor Marcou, welcome. So Europe, you know, from Istanbul to Grenoble, I guess an interesting stretch, Turkey and France. So obviously, you know, it's a complicated subject. I don't need to remind you of that. But hopefully we can shed some light. And I really, really hope that, you know, through this discussion, we may be able to identify possible points of convergence in what is admittedly a pretty messy situation with so many different, you know, intertwined issues, from geopolitics to the issue of Cyprus, which is still unsettled, to, of course, the issue of, you know, hydrocarbon resources, you know, supplies to Europe, supplies to Turkey. You know, I don't need to explain this to you. You know better than most. But hopefully we'll be able to shed some light. The idea here is to, I will ask some questions, and so we will be able to, you know, directly to you, and then we'll kick it off this way, and then hopefully we will have also some questions from the audience. So I think we're almost there. Yes, I see 12 o'clock on my computer clock.
We can start. Thank you.
All right, so we can start. Well, ladies and gentlemen, good morning or good afternoon, and good afternoon to our colleagues joining us from Turkey and from France, and everybody else who is following us online. We're very pleased to be able to discuss this complex subject of security issues and more in the Eastern Mediterranean. My name is Paolo von Schirach, and I have the privilege to serve as both as a president of the Global Policy Institute, an independent think tank based here in Washington, D.C., as well as a chair of political science and international relations at Bay Atlantic University, also located in downtown Washington, D.C., and our very close partner. So today, the topic is the Eastern Mediterranean, which has been, you know, the theater of complex struggles over a long period of time. But most recently, we know that there are problems connected that have flared up, so to speak, because of the discovery or potential findings of significant amounts of hydrocarbons, mostly natural gas, on the seabed. This has unfortunately intersected with other issues still unresolved, which is you know, maritime boundaries and exclusive economic zones that see Greece and Turkey, you know, on opposite sides, and in terms of claims. And of course, Cyprus, the island, which has 2 ethnic groups settled on it: Turkish Cypriots in the north, Greek Cypriots in the south. That is, you know, there was the theater again of an uprising back in 1974, which really threatened the security of the Turkish Cypriots. Then there was a Turkish military intervention to protect the ethnic Turks, and unfortunately, that's 1974. That's a long time ago, and unfortunately, the status, there's really no agreement as yet as to a new status for the island, whether we go back to what used to be before 1974 or something else. The 2 sides have been talking, but not quite, you know, successfully. And of course, the fact that significant amounts of natural gas may be in this Cypriot waters has complicated the issue more recently. But in any event, I don't want to preempt the discussion. Let me ask you, Professor Yayci from Istanbul. And first of all, thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you kick off and start by outlining, as best you can, the Turkish position on these complicated matters, and to give us some perspective of what is that Turkey would like to underline, and what is negotiable and what is not negotiable. Floor is yours. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Paolo. First of all, the East Mediterranean issue is the issue of the coastal states. Mainly the mainlands have a coast of their mainlands. So, and also Turkey, the main problem is the maritime jurisdiction issue in the Eastern Mediterranean. So, and Turkey always wants the fair solution for it. But Turkey knows his own rights and interests. And Turkey is not an expansionist or revisionist state. I would like to underline this reality. So Turkey has the longest coastline in Eastern Mediterranean. The length of his coastline is 1,870 kilometers. So if we look at the other states' coastlines, they are very little comparing with the Turkish coastline. And indeed, the Greece's coastline of its islands facing to Eastern Mediterranean is around 160 kilometers only. And so Turkey wants its own legitimate rights. And so we are obeying the basic principles for the some ICG decisions. And the basic principles of the fair maritime jurisdiction issue, we can say in four, totally four principles. One of them is equitability, and the other one is the domination of land over sea, and the other one is proportionality, and the other one is, which is very important, non-encroachment. So, Turkey always defending such an opinion. All the coastal states should sit together and then share fairly the maritime areas. But till now, especially Greek Cypriot administration has begun to divide the Eastern Mediterranean with respect to its own interests, and ignoring the longest coastline state, which is Turkey. And they made agreements, first of all with Egypt, and then declared economical exclusive zone, also ignoring Turkey. And that island, which is very tiny comparing with Turkey, they declared half of the Eastern Mediterranean as its own economic exclusive zone. So, and At the beginning, a university from France drew a map for the maritime jurisdiction areas, especially for the Eastern Mediterranean. It is called a Sevilla University map, and they gave only 41,000 kilometers, with respect to that map, which is not an official map, but European Union and some countries, next to Europe, they are using that map, and they gave only 41,000 kilometers square maritime area to Turkey, and 5 times greater to Greece, and 6 times greater to Greek Cypriot administration, which is unacceptable. First of all, those maximalist demands should be reset, should be drawn back. So I mean, it is unacceptable. So Turkey always declared that this is unacceptable. We should sit together and we should share fairly with respect to the international law, which is customary law. And so, but no one listened to Turkey. And Turkey was forced to defend its own rights and interests in the Eastern Mediterranean. So the beginning of the problem was the declaration of Greek Cypriot administration economic exclusive zone. We should underline this reality. The beginning of the problem was the Greek Cypriot administration EZ. And then Turkey began to interfere and defend its own maritime area and declared its own continental shelf to United Nations. And so the other states says that the declaration of Turkey was unlawful, illegal, unacceptable. How come Greece's especially the Greek Cypriot administration declarations was legal? So the judgment was not so fair. The judgment of the international community was not fair. So Turkey, and then, it is very clear that there are, how can I say? I don't know. There are costs of Libya and Turkey facing to each other. So Turkey decided to make an agreement with Libya. And then excuse me, the Sevilla University was a Spain university. I have to say that. Sevilla University was the Spanish university. So, and then Turkey signed an maritime delimitation agreement with Libya, which is the official government, which was known as legal administration by United Nations, Libyan Government of Nations Accord. So, and then according to Vienna Convention of the Law of Treaties, this MOU between the Turkey and Libya is defined as an international agreement with the provisions of the that bind. And so also Greece's maximalist claims also breach the Libyan continental shelf and rights. And the western borders of the Blue Homeland, which is the Turkish doctrine about that, in the Eastern Mediterranean are determined by the delimitation of the Maritime Jurisdiction Agreement signed with Libya. And so Turkey, it is the second agreement that Turkey signed with a coastal state in the Eastern Mediterranean. The first one was in 2011 with Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. And so Turkey's intention to sign agreements with Egypt and Israel and Lebanon and Syria. So, and also it is very interesting that when neighboring countries making maritime deals, Greece and Greek Cypriot administration of the Southern Cyprus under the unlawful and maximalist principles of Greek and Greek Cypriot claims, such as when Israel signed an agreement with Greek Cypriot administration, lost 16,344 kilometers square maritime area, and total afforded parcel with respect to the international law should be the Israel's maritime area, but they lost it to Greek Cypriot administration.
Sorry, Professor, may I stop you right there so that we have everybody else also to have a chance to interact? You made some very, very good points here. I would like to ask now Professor Jean Marcou to comment on this, to see what he, what he gleans. I mean, you know the region, you know Turkey. Give us your perspective on how these how can I say, this huge variance, as we would call it, can be bridged successfully based on your knowledge of the area and of the parties and their positions. Professor Marcou.
Yes, thank you, dear colleague, for giving me the floor and giving me the opportunity to participate to this interesting panel. I want to clarify first one important point, as some of the participants of the panel and as Rear Admiral Yayci has been involved in the diplomacy and the defense of their own country. Personally, I am only a scholar who try to understand the situation, who try to analyze the situation. And of course, as we convene, I will speak, of course, of the French position, but I am not a representative of the French government. So this is an important point to be mentioned first. Well, regarding this dispute of the Eastern Mediterranean, we recently, with colleagues, published a file in the Diplomacy Journal in France, and well, we were a bit surprised by this Eastern Med dispute because at the beginning, well, the revival of this dispute is the gas, as you mentioned it, gas and hydrocarbon resources. And well, this dispute occurred and tension occurred just as we saw a very important drop in gas and oil prices, and that the offshore operation became extremely exorbitant. So we immediately were interested by this dispute from our point of view of scholars, because we suspected that in fact gas and oil was not the main issue in this area, and that there was a sort of strategic restructuring in the operation. Well, at the beginning, when looking at the area, the surprise could come to when we remember that historically, and especially during the interwar, the relation between Greece and Turkey improved and were better than today. And the paradox is that in the 30s, with the friendship agreement between Greece and Turkey, with the different agreement that Turkey signed, in fact, the relation were better than today. And I think the present situation, the basis of the present situation are to be found in the immediate after the Second War, for three reasons. You mentioned, of course, the Cyprus dispute with this inter-community conflict, and the situation after 1974, with a situation fossilized, impossible to be managed. But there are other reasons that rose during the recent weeks. Another reason that fueled the dispute after the Second World War was the situation in the archipelago of Dodecanese. This archipelago was given to defeat Italy, from defeat Italy to Greece, because Greece participated to the Second World War as Turkey was less involved. So, and Turkey had never accepted this situation of the Dodecanese, and also, and Rear Admiral Yayci addressed this point mainly because that in the 50s, the 60s, you have this draft of the new law of the sea, and this new law of the sea, as Greece has quite the majority of the island of the Aegean Sea, create a situation that was perceived as unfair by Turkey. So we have to keep in mind, I think, this reason which appeared in a very recent history just after the Second World War. Later, some people said and thought that when it was confirmed that important gas resources were in this area close to Cyprus, Israel, and Egypt, some people thought that this will create a win-win situation, that Greece and Turkey, Cyprus, will cooperate in order to take benefit of this opportunity. But in fact, it is the opposite scenario, finally, that occurred. I think this is because you have not only Greece and Turkey, and during the last week, during the last months, regarding this situation, people focus on Greece and Turkey. And when you look at the moment, Greece and Turkey are not gas producer in the region. The gas producer are, in fact, Cyprus, Egypt, and Israel. Israel was the first gas producer in the region. And this creates, I think, a new situation, a complex situation, because when you look at this producer, and especially Israel, Egypt, of course, Cyprus with the dispute, they are a country which has not really good relation with Turkey. And this gas situation confirm, in fact, a strategic disagreement between the different protagonists of the Eastern Mediterranean. So I think, well, Admiral Yayci, and I think he knows very well the situation because I think he was involved in the operation. This intervention in Libya, because I think that, in fact, over the gas issue, Turkey, and it was quite clear in the comment of the Admiral, perceive the situation as a sort of frustration. We are not concerned by the gas, but at the same time, we have a difficult access to the sea, the different sea around Turkey. I remember that Turkey last year organized Navy drills, and it was very significant because these Navy drills were not only organized in Aegean Sea or Mediterranean, but in all the sea, that's to say the Black Sea, the Aegean Sea, and the Eastern Mediterranean. And well, we have seen, well, first within the Turkish Navy, but later the term and the concept was re-established and thought by Mr. Erdogan, this concept of Mavi Vatan. That's to say, the meaning is the blue homeland. In fact, we have no access to our blue homeland. And I think this is a real dimension in the debate, because in fact, not only for international reason, but also for national reason. In fact, I think that at the moment, Mr. Erdogan is in a difficult position regarding domestic issues, and that he has to, don't forget also that Mr. Erdogan at the moment has concluded since 2017 an alliance with the extreme right party of Mr. Barcelli. And we can guess that this policy will satisfy, of course, this alliance. So it is important to take into account the different issue. And well, I think that regarding this operation in Libya, I think it is an important operation. Well, for Turkey, it was not only for African reason to defend the position of Turkey in northeastern Africa versus Egypt, versus the Emirates. But it was important also to defend its position regarding the Eastern Mediterranean, because declaring this exclusive economic zone between Turkey and the Tripoli government permit Turkey to open a corridor between the gas field of Eastern Mediterranean and the Eastern Aegean Sea, with this strong position of Greece with the island. So I think it was a strategic operation, and I think it was, regarding the Turkish point of view, it was a bit like we saw this intervention, Turkish intervention in Syria, with this convergence with Iran and Russia. Initially, this intervention, this initiative in Libya appeared as a success. Even from the Turkish point of view, I mean, when you look also at these drills of the decision of this gunboat policy in Eastern Mediterranean with drills in dispute maritime area, it was, of course, also, it appears as a Turkish offensive, a bit like in Libya, that permit Turkey to change the game, or to try to change the game that was established with this gas situation, and especially this alliance inside the foreign gas in Cairo, led by Egypt. But regarding the situation today, I felt a bit uncomfortable regarding the position of Turkey, because the position of Turkey at the moment is really isolated. It has a difficult relation with conservative Sunni countries, that's to say, country of the Gulf and Egypt. Again, as some years ago, the situation was better. It has difficult situation, difficult relation with its Western allies, especially the European and even the American, because I was surprised by the position of the American administration, as well, the relation between Mr. Trump and Mr. Erdogan were quite good. When you look at the last position, I learned that yesterday the American administration comment the new drills, the decision to launch again the Oruç rice boat in the Eastern Mediterranean was perceived by the current American administration as a provocation. It's quite an important, a harsh term used by Washington. And last but not the least, the relation with the other member of the Eastern Mediterranean are difficult relations. So finally, I am impressed at the moment by the isolation of Turkey, and I wonder if the position taken during the last month were not a little bit risky.
Well, thank you so much for this perspective. I guess, Arnie, it's on you now to tell us how Uncle Sam is going to sort this out. I guess you need to unmute yourself, or somebody can do that. So can America, be an honest broker in all this? What are America's interests? Obviously, America is the leader of the Atlantic Alliance. Both Greece and Turkey, as we all know, are old members. How do we get out of this mess? Is there a way? Again, as the professor just pointed out, America is displeased about certain actions as has been declared, but perhaps you also, as an energy expert, can go a little deeper on the actual extent of the importance of this natural gas. As the professor mentioned earlier, Professor Marcou, oil and gas, especially gas, there's plenty of it. It's not like 20, 30 years ago when there was shortages and what have you. Now, in Europe, plenty of gas, including lately American LNG. Not a lot, but enough to change perceptions about scarcity and what have you. What's your take on both the geopolitics, the NATO, that you know quite well, angle, and the gas angle? That's easy.
Thanks, Paolo. Excuse me. Thanks, Paolo. And again, thanks to BAU and to the panelists for helping set the foundation for me. And as you mentioned, what I want to do is speak about primarily the U.S. perspective, and I think you hit on that very well, Paolo, as an honest broker. I realize that may be a stretch, but let me just start with a bit of foundation from my standpoint. I think that talking about U.S.-Turkish relations, I think from the U.S. standpoint, we're still operating in the Cold War era of how we view Turkey. I think that is not. I think we need to go back and reevaluate Turkey's position. Turkey is no longer bound by the Cold War ideologies. Turkey has its own interests. Turkey has I think Turkey has felt that it has suffered for many decades under the superpower ideologies where it felt constrained. And Turkey has its own interests. It has its own goals regionally, and I think it wants to expand its influence in the region, which is, I think, very, very natural for a regional power to want to do. So I think, again, we need, from the U.S. standpoint, I think we need to step back. Nothing's going to happen before the election, so nothing's going to happen before the end of this year, but hopefully the new administration, or whatever administration, will start to look at not just the Eastern Mediterranean, but all of Eastern Europe, and, because they're so closely interrelated in so many areas. But start to look at foundational relationships. And as Admiral Yayci mentioned, I think Turkey has some legitimate grievances, certainly in the Eastern Mediterranean, some areas where I think it feels put upon, and I don't disagree with them. I think there are some many long-standing concerns that Turkey has had, and rightfully so. And also to mention what Professor Marcou mentioned, that Turkey is really very isolated. And this is a fairly recent phenomenon. I think just a few years ago, I remember reading about Foreign Minister Davutoglu's no problems policy. I think that's what he called it a few years ago, where Turkey was trying to expand its relationships without any confrontations with its neighbors. And I think that has definitely has not happened. So I think all these parties, I think we need to take a step back and reevaluate things and realize this is easier said than done. But I think we need to look at reevaluating the overall relationship, not just between U.S. and Turkey, but U.S. and NATO and Turkey in the region. I think the U.S. can be an honest broker. It's probably really the only nation in the world that can do this. I know Turkey may feel otherwise, but I think realistically the U.S.-Turkish relationship goes back long enough where I think we've proven, and Turkey's been a tremendous ally in over these years, where we can use that as a foundation and go back and look at what kind of confidence building measures we can establish. And there's some huge issues that need to be resolved, I think, but the points that I want to make is attack some of the low-hanging fruit, where we can establish some kind of a basis and then build on that. It could be something like fairly, I would say fairly achievable, which is Turkey being involved in the EMGF, the Eastern Mediterranean Gas Forum. I think allowing that discussion to happen, I think can be accomplished, and making sure Turkey and I think Lebanon and Syria are also not members, again trying to establish the foundations there, bring in discussions, and start looking at that as one of the foundations for confidence building measures. Point that Professor Marcou mentioned also was the drop in the gas gas price, which has, I think, to a certain extent, made the gas is certainly valuable, but it doesn't have the importance it had maybe a few years ago. So I still see that as a valuable asset in the region, and whether we can leverage that as a positive. Again, the professor and I think we both are questioning that as a legitimate way to act as a foundation for discussions. I know that some have felt that using the gas, the undersea gas as a foundation for discussions was positive. I know Ambassador Matthew Bryce was also very, very much in favor of that. But I think we've that may not be as a valuable asset that we had thought initially. So we need to reevaluate that, and then any kind of a East Mediterranean pipeline, I think, is really not going to happen with the gas prices this low. I think it's just not feasible. It's more or less a a function of the market, functioning of the cost of extracting it, and it may be on an individual basis on each individual area, but a pipeline and the costs is just, at this point, the gas price is just not going to support that. So that I think that really leaves the gas or the energy angle as a negotiating tool pretty much on the sidelines. I just don't see that as something we can leverage. Other areas is Turkey's membership within NATO. I think that's another area where we can use the NATO membership as a way to build for confidence building measures. Again, Turkey's been a tremendous NATO ally for decades. I think this is something we can continue to build upon. And also, perhaps this is something that, if the current administration is reelected, perhaps this can be a way of leveraging the successes that we've seen in the Persian Gulf, and Kosovo and Serbia, have signed some, Israel and UAE and Bahrain. So this may be, with the relative goodwill, this may be a way we can leverage that also. So again, that I think that's very. Go ahead, Paolo.
Thank you, Arnie. Professor Yayci, back to you now. What do you think? I'm just grasping here at what Arnie said and say, confidence building measures. He mentioned Turkey's membership in this EMGF. Do you see, from your perspective, from where you are in Istanbul and knowing the thinking of the Turkish government in Ankara, where do you see that where are the proverbial low-hanging fruit? Where may be possible to engage without making, basic concessions, without giving away the store, as we say here? Where do you see that there may be promising areas, perhaps with the good offices of Washington, whoever will be in charge here, and we'll find out pretty soon after the elections, here in November. Do you see a way out of this? In other words, both Professor Marcou and Arnie mentioned, Turkey has its own position, but unfortunately not many friends at the moment. How do you expand your, the network of your supporters or people who recognize that you have a point and try to engage the other side? From your perspective, how can we constructively move forward from here, sir? Your microphone is off. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank you very much. So, as Arnold said, Turkey is a loyal ally of NATO, and NATO organization, it's a loyal member. So Turkey was frontier country during the Cold War, and still now a frontier ally of NATO to Middle East. So Turkey is sitting on the hottest point of the world. If you ask someone what are the hottest points of the world, they will count Iran, they will count Syria, they will count Iraq, they will count Lebanon, they will count Caucasia, Afghanistan, Azerbaijan, Armenia. All of them are neighbors of Turkey. And Turkey is the democratic country which carries on the Western values. And it's a good example for the rest of the world next to it. And Turkey is struggling with the whole humanitarian issues. Turkey now feeds over 5 million refugees. And Turkey is a frontier country for Europe. And Turkey is handling with the refugee problem. Think about that. If Turkey were not a frontier country for Europe, and if he wouldn't keep those 5 million refugees in his soils, what would happen to Europe? And so Turkey is doing his best for the world values. So please note it.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, Turkey is dealing with the whole international struggles over the Middle East. So now there is a stability in Libya, and the stability of the Libya is because of Turkey's advisory supports. So please note it, the people, the innocent peoples and civilian Libyan people were being killed 2 months ago or 3 months ago. But now there is a stability, more or less, in Libya. And so this is also another issue. And Professor Marcou noted very good point. At the beginning of 1920s, 1930s, the relations between Turkey and Greece were so good because of Lausanne Agreement. So let me remind you, who spoiled this Lausanne Agreement balance? First of all, in 1923, with respect to Lausanne Treaty, the territorial waters were 3 miles. And in 1936, by spoiling Lausanne Treaty, Greece declared his territorial waters, lengthened, increased to 6 miles. And still, Turkey almost 25 years waited and kept its own territorial waters as 3 miles. And then in 1952, Greece had, with respect to flight information region, this is a very technical issue, flight information region, and Greece has been trying to use it as a sovereignty right. And flight information region, Greece is telling that to whole world it is unacceptable that flight information region is my sovereignty region. It is unacceptable. And then, with respect to 1923 Lausanne Agreement and 1947 Paris Agreement, which, also Professor Marcou noted that, said that the Dodecanias Islands were delivered from Italy to Greece in 1947 with the condition of being in the demilitarized status. But You know, with respect to Lausanne and Paris agreements, Greece has been militarizing and weaponizing all those islands. So Greece is telling that, it is my self-defense right. So is there any other coastal state in the agency, which is Adalar Sea, we call it as Adalar Sea, let's call it right now for the common use in this conference. You know, in agency, is there any other coastal state except Turkey in the agency? There is only one country, you know, agency, which is coastal state, you know, next to Greece is Turkey. Turkey, what kind of country is Turkey? Turkey is a NATO member. And also Greece is a NATO member. So why Greece is militarizing those islands, which are very close? You don't need to use binoculars to see those islands from the Turkish coast. And so it is you know, unacceptable. So for being a self-defense right, there should be some invasion, some kind of invasion or intention or something like that, which happened in the past. There is no such kind of thing.
All right.
So as a bottom line, as a summary, the solution for the problem is to obey the agreements, Lausanne and Paris agreements. If Greece, first of all, obeys those agreements, there will be no problem. If we turn to Lausanne balance, there will be no problem. So these problems sources from the disobedience of Greece to agreements. That's all.
Thank you so much, Professor Marcou. Same question to you, also having heard these other quite elaborate descriptions of apparently, you know, what seems to be, obviously from a Turkish perspective, Greece non-compliance with the past agreements. Do you see from where you are, you know, possibility of creating flexibility on the Greek position? Is there a point of convergence at any point? Can we find the low-hanging fruit here somewhere to create, as Arnie was saying earlier, you know, some confidence-building measures whereby these tensions will go down and the maximum positions on either side can become a little softer and finding the proverbial middle point? Do you see that as a possibility from where you are, Professor Marcou?
Well, it is difficult to answer your question. What I can say is that, well, for sure, there will be solution. And when we look at what happened during the last months, after strong tension, in fact, the situation dropped, the tension drops. And so we can bet that this situation will be stopped. This increase of tension will be stopped. But, and this is the scenario since decades and decades, but the real source of the conflict won't be solved. I think this is the probable scenario, and that's why the conflict is fossilized since years and years. I remember we were speaking of the good relation of Turkey between the interwar, but I remember at the beginning, around at the eve of the millennium, again, there were attempts of rapprochement between Turkey and Greece with this diplomacy of earthquake with Mr. Ismail Cem and Georgios Papandreou. But finally, we observed that no significant result. We have good relation in trade, tourism, culture, but no real step were done to solve the problem of the agency and to solve definitively this problem. I think that if we continue to have this conflict between Greece and Turkey, just speaking of disputing on the international law, it will be very difficult to solve the problem, because it is, as we used to say in French, a sort of dialogue of deaf people. I think perhaps the only solution would be to establish new strategic ambition in the region. Because this region, and when we look at the different protagonists around the East-Med, probably we have to build new cooperation to rebuild this region, to permit the economic situation to be better. And I think we have to think to establish win-win situation. And this will be the only way to be over the dispute. Because if we are trying to find solution on the current basis of the conflict, to find who is right in the conflict, I think probably it's an impossible solution. So my position, for example, when you look at this gas forum in Eastern Mediterranean in Cairo, probably this gas forum has to include Turkey and Lebanon and other countries, because I think if there is no discussion on the situation, an open discussion on the situation, and if every side is defending his own point of view, well, I think we can ease tension for a while, but the conflict won't be definitively solved. And of course, the international institution and the different protagonists, and especially Turkey and Greece, despite the tension, observe a sort of self-restraint. I think they are used to observe a sort of self-restraint. They are trained to that. But anyway, of course, the NATO is here, the European Union is here. So this is a security, but anyway, we are in a dangerous area with several conflicts, several civil conflicts in Syria, Libya, and that, well, as the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Germany said, a spark can provoke an explosion in the region. So, of course, we have to find a solution, but I think to find a solution, we have to establish new opportunity for the different countries to be over the old dispute that have not any solution.
Thank you, Professor. We're really running out of time. I know we have some questions, but just as we're just about to wrap up, Arnie, finally to you. Not that this is really difficult, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you see any possibility of the frozen Cyprus question to be somehow unfrozen? Could that be a point in which the two sides may find convergence? or is it like at the moment just frozen as is, and the two positions of both the two communities on the island and the countries that support them, unable to bridge the gap? Or would that be even an issue worth raising at this point, given the complexity of all these other things going on?
Yeah, thanks, Paolo. I think at this point, in the current environment, I think Cyprus is untouchable. I think you need to, again, establish a stronger foundation in, to bring up the point again, confidence building measures before you can even get to that point. And then I still think, we're going to have to ratchet down the tensions quite a bit. I think going after Cyprus at this stage is really really a bridge too far in a lot of respects. So I think, again, starting with some basic fundamental, I think Professor Marcou has made a good point that a reevaluation of things in the Eastern Mediterranean is a start, and then approaching this with a couple of whether it's the gas forum, whether it's a NATO flotilla of states in the region coming together to train and to build confidence building measures that way. Building on that, I think Admiral Yayci made a great point about the refugee issue that keeps getting overlooked, but that's a tremendous burden that Turkey is bearing. Maybe there's a way we can address at least alleviating some of that financial burden, try and repatriate some of the refugees in a safe environment. Again, these are all things that I think can be addressed at a lower level that is less contentious, and then you can build on some of the Aegean issues, Cyprus, and some of the other areas that are going to be very difficult to address.
By the way, sorry, we just very quickly, let me add, there's one question from the audience, and again, which kind of reiterates points that have already been made, but the question is whether it is right or wrong to on the part of Europe and the United States to force Turkey to give up her rights. That's, again, very quickly, to you again, Arnie, and maybe Professor Marcou. This would have to be really telegraphic because we're running out of time. So somebody says, is it fair? Is Turkey getting a fair, a fair audience here, given all the issues that Professor Yayci has outlined? Are they getting a fair hearing here, or is it gamed all against them? Arnie and then Professor Marcou.
I would say, well, like I mentioned earlier, Turkey has some legitimate grievances. I will acknowledge that. Whether Europe or the U.S. should force Turkey to do anything is again, Turkey is a sovereign nation. You can't force them to do anything against their best interests. But I think the Turks are probably legitimate in feeling that they've been put upon. But I think there's also two sides to the story, and it's part of the review process and the confidence building measures that we need to make the Turks not feel like they are so heavily on the defensive. So I'll stop here, and then we can go to.
Okay, Professor Marcou, very, very quickly. Again, we're already a little bit out of time. Do you think that the world is unfair to Turkey, particularly Europe and the U.S.?
No, I think if we found a solution, of course, the solution has to be fair for everybody. So probably there will be a suspension of the situation and a sort of frozen situation at the moment. But to definitively solve the problem, we have to find solutions that satisfy every part. This is the true problem, and it's not easy to find it.
Well, thank you very much to all of you. Again, we are a little bit out of time. I'm really, really grateful to all of you, Professor Yayci, Professor Marcou, Arnie, to participate. Again, obviously, it was not our ambition to solve any problems, but at the very least to shed some light, and also to hear an articulation of the Turkish position, which, rightly or wrongly, is not sometimes well represented in the American, at least, where I'm here in Washington, D.C., perhaps in the debates and in the discussions that take place on these complexities, doesn't get a fair hearing. So once again, Professor Marcou, Professor Yayci, Arnie, thank you very much, and we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Okay. See you.
Thank you.